It was 3:14 p.m. on a quiet Thursday afternoon in Maplewood, New Jersey, a town known for its leafy streets, weekend farmers markets, and families who had lived there for generations. The kind of place where everyone waved to each other, and doors were rarely locked. Carol Bennett, 59, had just returned from her weekly volunteer session at St. Luke's Church downtown. She carried a small tote bag filled with donations, her mind wandering to what Emily might be up to in the home office, and whether Hannah would finally finish unpacking from her short visit to Boston. Then she noticed a young man standing on the doorstep. He was holding a package, neatly wrapped, the kind you might expect to contain a birthday gift or a delivery from an online store. He smiled warmly, the kind of smile that instantly made someone feel at ease. "Hi, Mrs. Bennett," he said. "I have a delivery for Emily. Thought I'd bring it over personally." Carol hesitated for only a second before returning the smile. "Oh, thank you, Alex. How have you been?" she asked, stepping aside to let him in. Alex Carver, 28, had been a familiar face in the Bennett household for months. Polite, friendly, helpful, everything you could ever want from a young man visiting your home. And yet, in that moment, there was something just a little off. A glint in his eyes, a subtle tension in his posture, the kind of detail that only now, in hindsight, would send chills down anyone's spine. Before we continue, I want to pause here and say, if you enjoy stories like this, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and comment below where you're watching from. You won't want to miss a single detail of this story, because what happens next changes everything for the Bennett family. Carol led Alex into the living room. The walls were lined with family photos, Emily and Hannah as children, smiling on vacations in Cape Cod, with Carol and her husband David beaming behind them. It was a picture of peace, happiness, and trust. Alex looked around, nodding as if he belonged there. And for a fleeting second, he almost did. But behind that calm smile and polite demeanor, Alex was carrying a dark secret. Something that had been brewing for weeks, carefully planned, and now poised to shatter this family's sense of safety forever. Carol placed the package on the table, thinking nothing of it. She chatted casually, asking Alex about work, about the weather, about nothing in particular, just friendly conversation. But every word, every pause, every gesture carried a weight neither of them could yet recognize. And as the camera of fate might have captured it, if fate were visible. The next moments would make Maplewood's quiet streets feel anything but safe. Alex smiled again. Friendly. Calm. Trustworthy. But that smile was hiding something far more dangerous than Carol could ever imagine. And right there, in that living room at 3:14 p.m., the calm before the storm had settled. The storm was coming, and no one would be ready. Maplewood, New Jersey, was a town where life moved slowly. On weekends, the streets buzzed with the aroma of freshly baked bread from local bakeries, children rode bikes past the town square, and neighbors waved from porches lined with flowers. But on that Thursday afternoon, the usual calm masked an undercurrent that no one could yet see. Emily Bennett, 27, had spent the morning in her home office designing a client's living room in downtown Maplewood. Her business, Bennett Interiors, had grown steadily over the last 2 years. Clients praised her creativity, professionalism, and her ability to transform any space into a warm, inviting haven. She was meticulous, organized, and endlessly kind, the kind of person people trusted instantly. Her younger sister, Hannah, 25, had flown in from Boston for a short visit. She was finishing her master's degree in digital marketing, but her return home had been more than just a break. Hannah loved the comfort of the family home, the laughter over dinner, and the simple joy of knowing her sisters and parents were nearby. Carol and David Bennett had built their home not just as a place to live, but as a sanctuary. Every corner reflected love, memories, and the care they poured into raising Emily and Hannah. From the family photos lining the hallway to the collection of books stacked neatly on the shelves, everything in the house told the story of a family rooted in trust, closeness, and warmth. Meanwhile, Alex Carver's arrival earlier in the afternoon seemed perfectly normal. To anyone watching, he was just a polite young man delivering a package for Emily. But subtle details hinted at something more. The package in his hand seemed heavier than it should be, and his grip tightened for just a fraction of a second as he stepped through the doorway. He hesitated briefly near the threshold, glancing around the room, as if assessing every detail. No one noticed the small pause, the calculated glance, or the way he adjusted the strap of the rucksack he carried. To Carol and the sisters, he was nothing more than a friendly face, someone they had welcomed into their lives without hesitation. Life in Maplewood moved forward in those quiet moments. A neighbor walked their dog past the Bennett house, unaware that behind the windows, the ordinary afternoon was about to transform into a nightmare. The distant laughter of children from the nearby park mingled with the soft hum of traffic on Maplewood Avenue, masking the tension growing inside the Bennett home. Emily was preparing tea for her mother and sister, chatting about a new client who had requested a full renovation of their apartment in New York City. Hannah laughed at one of Emily's jokes, sipping from her coffee mug, while Carol admired the neatness of the living room, everything in its place, everything calm. And then there was Alex, standing quietly near the doorway, package in hand, pretending to look at the photographs on the wall. Friendly. Polite. Calm. But with a tension beneath the surface, a subtle, almost imperceptible weight that made him hesitate just long enough to leave the viewer uneasy. It was that small hesitation, that momentary pause, that would later replay in investigators' minds. The detail that might have saved the family, if only someone had noticed. Carol finally took the package from Alex, setting it on the table with a soft thank you. Emily will be happy to see this, she said, unaware that the contents of that seemingly ordinary package had nothing to do with gifts or deliveries. As the sisters continued their casual conversation, the camera of fate might have lingered just a little longer on Alex's eyes, the slight narrowing, the flicker of impatience, and the way his fingers brushed the strap of the rucksack. Everything seemed normal, yet the tension was almost palpable to anyone paying attention. And there, in that calm suburban living room, surrounded by laughter and warmth, the first threads of betrayal began to weave themselves quietly, invisibly, into the fabric of the Bennett family's day. Alex's arrival had appeared normal, but the subtle hints, the heavy package, the hesitation, the fleeting tension, whispered to the audience, something was terribly wrong. And in the moments to come, that whispered warning would explode into unimaginable chaos. Alex Carver appeared ordinary to anyone passing by on Maplewood Avenue. Polite, friendly, always ready with a smile, the type of young man neighbors would trust instantly. But behind that carefully constructed facade, Alex carried a darkness no one could have anticipated. From the outside, he had a respectable job as a security officer at a local firm. He went to the gym regularly, attended community events, and even volunteered at a few charity drives. To the Bennetts, he seemed like someone who genuinely cared about people, someone they could welcome into their home without hesitation. But the reality was far more sinister. Behind closed doors, Alex was obsessive. His charm was a mask that concealed a mind consumed by control, resentment, and a simmering rage that had been growing over months. Small red flags had appeared here and there, though the Bennetts had dismissed them at the time. The way Alex sometimes lingered a little too long in conversation, the subtle critiques of Emily's clothing or work habits, the occasional jealous remark when she mentioned friends or clients, nothing overtly alarming, but enough to create tiny ripples of discomfort. Friends of Emily had noticed subtle changes too. She was occasionally more hesitant on the phone, distracted in her conversations, quick to end discussions about Alex's comments. Even her social media posts began to hint at stress, small, almost imperceptible signs that something in her personal life was beginning to weigh on her. Alex's obsession wasn't just about control. It was about revenge. He had convinced himself that he had been wronged, that Emily had betrayed him in ways he couldn't forgive. And over the weeks, he had meticulously planned his response, creating a dark blueprint of what he would do if the opportunity arose. It was in these quiet, ordinary moments, walking through the grocery store, ordering coffee, visiting the Bennett's home, that Alex honed his mask. He smiled, joked, and acted charming, while secretly studying the family's habits, routines, and vulnerabilities. He memorized Emily's work schedule, noted Carol's volunteer hours, and even timed the arrival of Hannah from Boston. Every detail was being catalogued, every weak point noted. And yet, to the family, Alex was harmless. He carried a package for Emily, shared a laugh with Carol, asked about Hannah's studies, the perfect guest, the perfect friend, the perfect mask. But beneath the surface, the tension was building. Like a storm cloud gathering slowly in the sky, Alex's plans were coming together with terrifying precision. Every action he took, every smile he offered, was calculated, deliberate, and aimed at one goal: to shatter the Bennett family's sense of safety and trust forever. No one suspected the darkness lurking behind the friendly smile. No one could have imagined the hours of planning, the obsessive focus, the sheer ruthlessness waiting to be unleashed. And in that moment, as Alex lingered near the living room window, pretending to admire the sunlight streaming through the curtains, the audience knows what the family does not: danger had already arrived. No one suspected that Alex had been planning something that would shatter their lives forever. And yet, in the very next moments, the first threads of chaos were about to unravel in ways that would leave the Bennetts, and viewers, breathless. The weeks leading up to that fateful Thursday had been deceptively quiet in Maplewood. On the surface, life flowed as usual, Emily managing her growing interior design business, Hannah finishing up assignments for her master's program, Carol preparing meals and volunteering at St. Luke's Church. Everything appeared normal, a picture of suburban peace. But beneath that calm, subtle warning signs were quietly stacking up, unnoticed by the family who trusted Alex implicitly. Emily began canceling plans with friends more often. She would give vague excuses: "I've got work to finish," or "maybe next week." Her friends assumed she was busy; she had always been driven and organized. But in truth, she was quietly walking on eggshells around Alex, who had started making small, controlling comments. "You really shouldn't wear that," he'd say casually one evening, brushing off her outfit choice. "It doesn't suit you." Or, "Are you sure you want to go out with them tonight?" It wasn't overtly threatening, just a subtle way of influencing her decisions, a slow tightening of control. Meanwhile, Alex had begun making unusual purchases. Delivery boxes appeared on Emily's porch, seemingly innocuous at first, household items and tools. But friends would later notice that the timing and nature of these packages were strangely specific. Large ropes, duct tape, and other items that didn't match any typical home project quietly stacked in the corner of his apartment. Emily noticed odd behaviors too. The way Alex would occasionally linger outside her window while she worked, or how he seemed to check in on her schedule without her asking. She felt uneasy, a whisper of fear in her gut, but dismissed it, convincing herself she was imagining things. Even neighbors noticed subtle disturbances. Mrs. Thompson, who lived across the street, mentioned seeing Alex loiter near the Bennett home one afternoon. "He just stood there, looking at the windows," she recalled. "I thought he was waiting for someone, but it felt off." Friends from Emily's office noticed she was distracted, more anxious than usual, though she brushed off their concerns with a nervous laugh. All of these small warning signs painted a picture of a man who was more calculating than anyone could realize. Alex's charming smile and polite manners masked a mind obsessed with control, planning, and revenge. On the afternoon of July 9th, as the sun dipped gently over Maplewood, Alex parked a few streets away. He stepped out of his car and stood at the edge of the sidewalk, observing the Bennett home. His eyes scanned every detail: who was in the garden, which windows were open, the timing of the sisters' movements. Every small action was a piece of a puzzle only he could see. And while the family laughed inside, completely unaware, Alex adjusted the strap of the rucksack he carried, tightened his grip, and mentally rehearsed the steps he would soon take. The calm, sunny suburban street became the stage for something dark and unimaginable. From a distance, Alex watched the Bennett house, his mind working with terrifying precision. No one suspected the danger lurking nearby, and no one could guess the devastation about to descend on this family. The doorbell rang at 3:14 p.m., sharp and deliberate, cutting through the soft hum of the Bennett household. Carol Bennett, ever the welcoming host, opened the door to see Alex standing there, the afternoon sun glinting off the neatly wrapped package in his hands. "Hi, Mrs. Bennett," Alex said, voice calm, measured, polite. "I've got a delivery for Emily." Carol smiled warmly, holding the door wide. "Thank you, Alex. Come on in." She stepped aside, unaware that this small gesture, so ordinary, so trusting, would become one of the last ordinary moments of her life. Alex's demeanor was unnervingly calm. His polite greeting, his soft smile, even the casual nod to the family photos on the wall, every action was carefully designed to appear harmless. But the package he carried wasn't what it seemed. Hidden beneath the layers of cardboard and tape in the rucksack slung over his shoulder was a compact crossbow. A weapon capable of shattering the family's peaceful afternoon in an instant. The quiet, suburban home, the photos, the laughter, the sunlight streaming through the windows, would soon be a scene of terror. Carol, completely unaware, took the package from him and set it carefully on the kitchen table. "Emily will be thrilled to see this," she said cheerfully, wiping her hands on her apron. Alex nodded, glancing momentarily at the living room where Emily and Hannah were catching up over tea. "Everything okay?" Carol asked casually, noting nothing unusual. "Perfect," Alex replied, his voice steady. Calm. Friendly. But in that single word was the mask he wore, hiding the obsession and rage that had been building for weeks. Audience engagement moment. If you think you can spot his next move, comment below before we reveal what happens. Could anyone have predicted the danger hiding behind that polite smile? As Alex stepped further into the living room, the air seemed to thicken. The sun glinted off the edges of the rucksack, just enough for the audience to notice the shape inside, the subtle hint that something was terribly wrong. Carol chatted on, oblivious, while Emily and Hannah laughed over a shared memory. The family's trust in Alex, his charm, his friendliness, was absolute. But the tension was undeniable. Every second Alex lingered, every casual gesture, every measured smile was a step closer to chaos. The crossbow rested quietly beneath his jacket, waiting, just out of sight. And as he moved deeper into the room, the quiet calm of the Bennett home teetered on the edge of something unthinkable. Alex steps fully into the living room, the camera focusing on the rucksack slung across his chest. 3:16 p.m., a quiet, ordinary Thursday afternoon in Maplewood shattered in an instant. Carol Bennett was in the living room, arranging the package Alex had brought on the table. She had just turned to ask Emily a question when the first strike hit. A sharp, brutal movement. The sound, a sickening thud, echoed through the house, reverberating off the walls, breaking the familiar calm into chaos. Carol's gasp was cut short as she realized what was happening. Her eyes met Alex's for the first time with a flicker of horror. The friendly smile was gone, replaced by cold precision, a deadly intent she could never have imagined. Emily froze, teacup trembling in her hand. The package on the table slipped, hitting the floor with a dull thump. And then, Hannah arrived, earlier than expected, having taken a shorter train from Boston. She walked up the driveway, smiling, completely unaware of the nightmare unfolding inside her family's home. As she opened the front door, her eyes widened. The scene that greeted her was nothing short of horrifying. Alex, standing over Carol, was no longer the polite young man she had trusted. Every action, every movement, screamed danger. Hannah's scream pierced the air, raw, panicked, desperate, a sound that would haunt the quiet streets of Maplewood forever. Emily tried to reach for her sister, but Alex's presence loomed, controlling, menacing. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, was now a battleground. The walls, adorned with family photos and memories, became silent witnesses to horror. Time seemed to stretch unnaturally, each second loaded with fear, disbelief, and an impossible realization: this was no random attack. This was calculated, precise, personal. 3:18 p.m., the sounds of struggle continued, muffled yet horrifying, echoing through the living room and into the hallways. The ordinary objects of daily life, the coffee table, the armchairs, the rug, were now part of a scene of terror. Emily and Hannah exchanged frantic glances. Survival instincts kicked in. Hannah, the younger sister, had to make a choice in an instant: fight or flee, protect her family or protect herself. She knew one thing with terrifying clarity: her life, and the life of anyone she could reach, hung by a fragile thread. Hannah's scream filled the quiet suburban street, cutting through the afternoon calm. Her survival instincts ignited, but would she make it through this unthinkable nightmare? And what had Alex truly planned next? 3:25 p.m., Alex Carver made his move. The crossbow tucked carefully in his rucksack, he slipped past the chaos inside the Bennett home, moving with chilling calm through the hallway. Outside, the quiet suburban street was beginning to stir. A neighbor walking her dog heard Hannah's piercing scream and ran toward the house, calling for help. Cars slowed, drivers craning their necks to see what had shattered the afternoon calm. The faint sound of panic and shouting traveled through the neighborhood, drawing more residents toward the Bennett home. Alex reached his car parked a few blocks away, a calculated plan guiding every movement. He glanced back once, scanning the street. Police had not yet arrived, a small window of time he intended to exploit. With practiced precision, he slipped into the driver's seat and started the engine. The tires hummed against the asphalt as he merged into Maplewood Avenue, leaving behind a trail of confusion, fear, and unanswered questions. Meanwhile, inside the house, Emily and Hannah were struggling to regain composure. The door was ajar, and the neighborhood's worried voices filtered in, mingling with their own panic. In those moments, the weight of what had just happened began to sink in. The Bennett family's sanctuary had been violated, and their trust betrayed in the most unimaginable way. Investigators would later arrive to a scene of chaos. But even in the immediate aftermath, certain breadcrumbs were already left behind. CCTV footage from a neighbor's security camera captured a shadowy figure fleeing the scene. Fingerprints on the package, smudges on the living room surfaces, and discarded items outside the front door gave law enforcement the first hints of the perpetrator's presence. Yet, even with these clues, the truth remained hidden. Alex had been meticulous. The trail was there, yes, but deciphering it would require patience, attention to detail, and a willingness to look beyond the obvious. Emergency services swarmed Maplewood Avenue. Police cars, lights flashing, blocked streets while neighbors tried to help. EMTs tended to Emily and Hannah, who were shaken but alive, a testament to their quick thinking and resilience. But in the midst of this chaos, one fact stood out: Alex Carver was still out there, calculating his next move, untouchable, and far more dangerous than anyone could comprehend. Investigators had no idea that the truth was far more shocking than they imagined. Behind Alex's seemingly ordinary exterior lay secrets, plans, and betrayals that would shake Maplewood to its core. By 4 p.m., Maplewood's usually peaceful streets were cordoned off with police tape. Sirens still echoed faintly in the distance as law enforcement swarmed the Bennett home. Detective Sarah Mitchell, a seasoned investigator with over 15 years on the force, stepped through the front gate, her eyes scanning every detail. This was no ordinary domestic dispute. The calculated precision of the attack suggested something far more sinister. Inside, forensic teams meticulously combed the scene. Fingerprints were lifted from the package and furniture. DNA swabs were taken from surfaces touched during the struggle. Small traces of crossbow residue were carefully documented, each piece catalogued as critical evidence. Every chair, every table, every corner became a puzzle piece that could help investigators reconstruct the moments of terror. Detectives also spoke with neighbors, many still shaken from what they had seen, or heard. Mrs. Thompson, who had watched Alex from across the street just days before, described him as too polite, too observant, like he was always watching, always calculating. Others recalled the screams, the running footsteps, and the surreal feeling of witnessing a suburban nightmare unfold in their usually quiet neighborhood. Emily and Hannah, still wrapped in blankets provided by first responders, gave limited statements, recounting fragmented moments of horror. Their bravery was evident, but the weight of the day pressed heavily on their shoulders. Every word they spoke offered investigators tiny pieces of the puzzle, enough to begin piecing together Alex's movements, mindset, and methods. Detective Mitchell reviewed the initial CCTV footage from the neighborhood. Alex's flight from the house was clear, but then something unexpected appeared on the screen. A second figure, someone who had been moving subtly in the background, stepped out of a shadowed driveway, observing the Bennett home as the chaos unfolded. The footage showed the figure's movements were deliberate, measured, almost too controlled to be a random passerby. This discovery sent a chill through the investigative team. Had Alex acted alone, or was someone else involved? The implications were staggering. If there was a second person, the careful plan behind the attack became far more complex, far more dangerous. The presence of the second figure on CCTV hinted at a shocking new layer to the case, a possible accomplice, someone who had been watching, waiting, and silently aiding Alex in ways no one could have imagined. Detective Sarah Mitchell and her team sat around a cluttered table in Maplewood Police Headquarters, laptops open, coffee cups scattered. The footage from the Bennett home replayed over and over on multiple screens. The second figure, the accomplice, was subtle, almost ghost-like, but undeniable. Whoever they were, they hadn't been a random passerby. Someone had been supplying Alex with information, watching the family, waiting for the perfect moment. The team's first step was to trace any digital footprints. Emails, social media interactions, GPS data, every piece of information Alex might have accessed was scrutinized. They combed through months of phone records, bank transactions, and delivery logs. Patterns emerged, subtle but telling. A package that had arrived at Alex's apartment weeks before the attack wasn't ordinary, it was part of a series of items tied to planning and preparation. Investigators interviewed neighbors and acquaintances again, this time probing for anyone who had noticed unusual behavior from people who seemed to appear at the wrong place or time. A mail carrier mentioned a person who had signed for several packages at Alex's address, someone unfamiliar to the carrier, someone who never left a name. Meanwhile, the Bennett family's digital lives were analyzed. Social media posts, check-ins, and even shared photos were examined for anomalies. Detective Mitchell noted subtle overlaps, timestamps showing that the accomplice had likely been online simultaneously with Alex during key planning phases. Every piece of digital data told the same story: Alex had not acted alone. Someone else had been involved, feeding him information about Emily, Carol, and Hannah's routines, their schedules, and even the timing of their arrival and departures. Interviews with colleagues at Alex's workplace revealed more red flags. He seemed secretive, one coworker said, but sometimes he'd step out or make calls that seemed urgent. He'd laugh off questions, but I got the sense someone else was guiding him. Another added, I don't know who it could be, but he wasn't acting in isolation. The question that now haunted every investigator in Maplewood was terrifyingly clear: who was the accomplice, and how much more danger were they capable of causing? Every lead seemed to circle back to Alex, yet the second figure's presence suggested a more sinister, coordinated effort. The detectives knew one thing with chilling certainty. If the accomplice had been this calculated and patient once, there was no guarantee they wouldn't strike again. And while Alex was behind bars for the Bennett attack, the accomplice remained unidentified, lurking somewhere in the shadows. Could the accomplice strike again? The idea sent shivers through the team and left the audience questioning, who could they trust, and how deep did this conspiracy go? Before the chaos that shattered Maplewood, Emily Bennett's life had been a quiet celebration of talent, kindness, and determination. At just 27, she had built a thriving interior design business, Maplewood Designs, helping families transform houses into homes filled with warmth and personality. Clients raved about her creativity, professionalism, and the way she made every project feel personal. Her days were often long, filled with sketches, client meetings, and site visits, but Emily never lost her smile. She maintained close ties with her family, especially her mother, Carol, who had been her confidant and support through every challenge, and her younger sister, Hannah, whose mischievous humor always brought a spark to Emily's sometimes busy life. Friends described Emily as the kind of person who remembered birthdays, sent encouraging notes, and showed up without being asked whenever someone needed help. Her presence in Maplewood had been quiet but profound, a beacon of warmth in a suburban town that often felt ordinary. And yet, beneath the charm and calm of her daily life, danger had been creeping unnoticed. The obsessive attention of Alex Carver had turned that kindness into vulnerability, his fixation on Emily driving a dark plan that would disrupt everything she loved. Investigators, digging through Emily's messages, diaries, and emails, began to piece together the extent of Alex's obsession. Messages that had once seemed harmless now revealed an insidious pattern, reminders of where she had been, questions about whom she spoke with, cryptic notes about not leaving him behind. Each text was a window into his calculating mind, a map of obsession and revenge meticulously traced before the attack. As detectives read through the correspondence, they realized the danger had not appeared overnight. Every warning sign, every subtle control, had been documented by Alex in obsessive detail. Emily's kindness, her trust, and her normal daily routines had been used against her. For viewers, this was more than a crime story. It was the loss of a life filled with potential, warmth, and achievement. Emily's story became personal, her dreams and legacy creating a deep emotional bond with the audience. Every triumph, every laugh, every ordinary moment she had cherished made the attack feel even more devastating. Among the messages, investigators discovered one particularly chilling thread. Alex had mapped out not just the attack, but potential responses, escape routes, and contingencies, showing a level of obsessive planning that left the team, and the audience, stunned. What else could he have been hiding? In the midst of the chaos that consumed the Bennett home, it was Hannah who became an unexpected pillar of strength. At just 24, she had always been known for her quick wit and adventurous spirit, but no one could have anticipated the courage she would summon on that terrifying afternoon. As Alex moved through the living room with calculated intent, Hannah froze for a split second, her heart pounding like a drum. Fear surged through her veins, sharp and paralyzing, but instinct took over. She darted toward the hallway, careful to stay out of Alex's line of sight, using the furniture as cover. Every movement was a calculated risk. Her mind raced, thinking through every possible escape route. The front door. Locked. The side gate. She hadn't checked. Upstairs. Too risky. Her survival instincts were in overdrive, fueled by the need to protect herself and, if possible, warn her sister and mother. In a moment of brilliant resourcefulness, Hannah grabbed her phone, keeping it hidden as she dialed 911. Her voice trembled as she whispered urgent instructions, describing her location and the presence of an armed intruder. She could hear Alex's movements nearby, the faint scrape of his boots on the hardwood floor, but she stayed silent enough to avoid detection. The minutes felt like hours, each tick of the clock amplifying the tension. Yet, despite her terror, Hannah remained composed. She guided the dispatcher carefully, giving them the clearest picture possible of the situation inside the home. And then, when it seemed the danger was closing in, Hannah took an even greater risk. She peeked around the corner and saw Alex preparing to move toward Emily. Heart racing, she shouted, drawing his attention, buying Emily precious seconds to react. Her bravery was instinctive, raw, and selfless, a stark contrast to the calculated evil she faced. If you're inspired by Hannah's courage, hit like and share this video, let people know bravery matters. Comment below if you think you could have acted as she did in that terrifying moment. Through sheer determination, quick thinking, and fearless resolve, Hannah became more than a survivor, she became the key to saving herself and helping law enforcement reconstruct the attack. Her actions left an indelible mark, proving that even in the darkest moments, courage could shine through. As Hannah huddled, heart pounding, hidden from Alex's view, the question lingered, would her bravery be enough to outwit him entirely? And what had investigators yet to discover about the full extent of Alex's planning and the accomplice's role in the attack? Detective Sarah Mitchell sat at the command center, eyes glued to the digital map of Maplewood. Every CCTV clip, phone ping, and eyewitness statement was plotted with exact times and locations. The team was determined to reconstruct the attack, second by second, to understand not just what had happened, but how Alex had managed to orchestrate such calculated chaos. 3:14 p.m., Alex arrives at the Bennett home with the seemingly innocent package. The camera captures him smiling, calm, carrying the rucksack containing the crossbow. 3:16 p.m., the first strike. Carol Bennett falls, the sound of struggle echoing through the house. Emily and Hannah attempt to react. 3:18 p.m. Hannah arrives early, creating the first unexpected twist. Her quick thinking allows her to call 911 and hide, buying precious minutes. 3:25 p.m., Alex flees the house, seamlessly blending into the suburban streets of Maplewood, his escape meticulously planned. Investigators noted the precision of Alex's preparations. The crossbow had been ordered weeks in advance, along with accessories like bolts, rope, and duct tape. He had scouted multiple escape routes, familiarized himself with local traffic patterns, and even studied the schedules of nearby law enforcement patrols. Every element of the attack was deliberate, a puzzle constructed piece by piece. The team also mapped Alex's movements after leaving the scene. GPS data from his phone suggested he had checked multiple locations, potential hiding spots, secluded areas, and even vantage points to observe the Bennett home without being detected. Investigators were beginning to understand the level of forethought behind the attack. While reconstructing the timeline, a sense of urgency gripped the team. Every moment Alex remained free was a threat. The accomplice's presence, still unidentified, added another layer of danger. Could they strike again? Were they tracking law enforcement's moves as meticulously as Alex had tracked the Bennett family? With the timeline pieced together, investigators realized just how close Alex had come to executing even more devastating plans. The question loomed over Maplewood: would Alex be caught before he struck again, or was the worst still to come? By early morning, the manhunt for Alex Carver had stretched far beyond Maplewood. Detective Sarah Mitchell coordinated with state and federal authorities, tracking him across New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. Every movement was meticulously logged, from GPS pings on his phone to online activity that revealed brief stops at gas stations, motels, and obscure rural roads. Helicopters hovered above, their blades slicing the crisp air as police cruisers and tactical units scoured wooded areas and highways. Roadblocks were established at critical junctions, checkpoints monitored suspicious vehicles, and drones scanned abandoned lots. The scale of the operation reflected the seriousness of the threat. News crews began covering the pursuit, their cameras capturing the tension in the streets, the flashing lights, and the sheer coordination of law enforcement. Residents watched anxiously, hearts pounding, wondering if the dangerous fugitive would be caught or slip through the net once more. Meanwhile, Alex seemed to anticipate the chase. His online activity showed deliberate misdirection, fake hotel bookings, GPS routes that looped back on themselves, and deleted messages intended to confuse investigators. Every digital breadcrumb was a calculated attempt to stay one step ahead, creating a pulse-pounding game of cat and mouse. Officers reported near misses, a highway chase in Pennsylvania, where Alex's car nearly collided with a police cruiser, and a brief foot pursuit in a wooded area of Connecticut that ended when he vanished into dense underbrush. Each failed interception increased tension, both among the authorities and the public. The manhunt wasn't just about apprehending Alex, it was a race against time. Investigators feared that if cornered, he might escalate, putting more lives at risk. Every helicopter sweep, every patrol car deployment, every carefully placed checkpoint was part of a strategy to anticipate his next move before tragedy struck again. Investigators closed in. Alex's freedom was dwindling, but would he surrender peacefully, or would desperation push him to escalate his actions one final, shocking time? Months had passed since Alex Carver's capture, but Maplewood still felt the weight of what had happened. Courtroom seats were packed, reporters lined the hallways, and the community gathered outside, anxiously awaiting the trial of the man who had shattered the Bennett family's lives. Inside the courtroom, Judge Harper presided with solemn authority. Alex, appearing gaunt and defiant, sat flanked by his attorneys, while the prosecution meticulously laid out the sequence of terror he had orchestrated. Each piece of evidence, the crossbow, the messages, the GPS tracking, the accomplice's role, was presented in meticulous detail. The emotional centerpiece of the trial was Hannah Bennett's testimony. Her voice trembled as she recounted the day of the attack, her bravery under pressure, and the moments that had saved her life and allowed investigators to reconstruct Alex's plan. The courtroom was silent, the weight of her words leaving everyone present, from jury to spectators, stunned. Investigators also brought forward the accomplice, revealed through months of painstaking investigation. Under interrogation, the accomplice confessed to supplying Alex with detailed information about the Bennett family's routines, showing the calculated, premeditated nature of the attack. Their motives were murky, tinged with jealousy, manipulation, and a chilling lack of remorse. As the trial progressed, the community outside the courtroom grappled with a mixture of relief and lingering shock. News outlets highlighted Emily's achievements, Carol's warmth, and Hannah's courage, turning their lives into symbols of resilience. Maplewood's residents, while heartbroken, found solace in the fact that justice was finally taking its course. When the jury delivered the verdict, it was unanimous. Alex Carver was found guilty on multiple counts, including assault, attempted murder, and conspiracy. The accomplice received a significant sentence as well, marking an official reckoning for their betrayal. Tears and sighs of relief swept through the courtroom, but the emotional impact lingered far beyond the verdict. Even with justice served, some questions remained. How could trust be rebuilt after such a calculated betrayal? Could Maplewood ever feel safe again? And for viewers, the story left a haunting thought. Sometimes, the most terrifying danger comes from those who appear closest to us. Maplewood was quiet now, but the echoes of the past still lingered. Hannah Bennett sat on the porch of her family home, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows over the garden where so much had unfolded. The weight of the tragedy had not left her, yet neither had the strength she had discovered within herself that day. As she reflected, memories of her mother, Carol, and sister Emily flooded back. Their laughter, their warmth, the life they had built together. Hannah knew she carried not just her own survival, but the legacy of her family. Their courage, kindness, and unwavering love for one another would continue to shine, even in the aftermath of unimaginable betrayal. Hannah had learned that bravery wasn't the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. Every step she took forward honored the memory of those lost, and every act of kindness she offered to others was a tribute to the love that had shaped her. The community, too, had begun to heal. Neighbors spoke of Emily's creativity, Carol's compassion, and Hannah's heroism. The story of the Bennett family became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even in darkness, courage and trust could endure. And yet, the chilling truth of what had happened remained. The betrayal had come from someone they had welcomed into their lives, someone who had hidden malevolence behind a friendly smile. The lesson was clear: trust is precious, but vigilance and awareness are vital. Hannah took a deep breath, looking out across Maplewood, and whispered a quiet acknowledgement to her family. Their love would never be forgotten, and their legacy would inspire courage in others for years to come. If you were captivated by this story, subscribe, like, share, and comment where you're watching from. More true crime mysteries are coming, and you won't want to miss them. Let's continue uncovering the dark, twisted tales that teach us about courage, betrayal, and survival.